Chris Sands of the Wilson Center. Biden's first meeting in person with Prime Minister Trudeau just happened recently. By all accounts, a wild success, but I'm sort of curious what your big takeaway was from it.
Well, I think when the president and the prime minister meet, they aren't the day-to-day managers of the relationship. They're the fire department for the relationship, and there are three things you need to see in a summit. Symbolically, do we show that we're friends? Substantively, do we solve problems? And then last but not least, are we signaling to the bureaucracy and all the people in the private sector who have to get their job done that this is a relationship worth investing in? And I think on every one of those three things, we had a great summit.
And there are certainly a number of problems that they had to confront and talk about. I'm curious, what do you think most Canadians feel is the biggest and most urgent of those issues?
Well, I think one of them, and we've heard a lot about it here at the GZERO Summit, has been about electric vehicles. We all want to move in the direction of electric vehicles, but we need critical minerals to build them, and we need to make sure that our industrial policy doesn't freeze Canada out. It's really one auto industry. We need to be part of this together. And I think there was a sense when Congress wrote some of that legislation, they did kind of put Canada on the side. It was America first, but the Biden administration is really committed to making sure that this doesn't get in the way of the North American supply chain. And I think hearing the president talk about that and then what we're going to do to make it work was a tremendous win for both countries.
Another huge issue, obviously, is migration. Do you think that they have both adequately answered some very critical questions about border policy?
I think they moved in the right direction, but again, they put in motion a solution that allows, on the Canadian side, 14 days to bring someone who's crossed irregularly back to bringing them into channels, and on the American side, better coordination between the Border Patrol and U.S. CBP, the Customs and Border Protection. We've had real problems just having people on the same side nominally fighting with each other about who's responsible and who pays for it. The number one thing that I think both leaders did with their agreement on migration is discourage people from risking their lives going through rugged territory just to try to get across the border. We want people to know that they're going to be welcomed, but they have to come through channels because otherwise it's not safe for them and they'll be more likely to be exploited by human traffickers and others that we don't want to see do well here in North America.
In a recent Maru GZERO poll, even though overwhelmingly most Canadians and Americans had a very favorable impression of the relationship, 90% saying we're each other's strongest allies, the negative number, particularly among Canadians who are looking at that relationship with the U.S., is creeping up a bit. Almost a third said the relationship is getting worse. What's contributing to that?
I think it's a couple of things. Canada has a lower risk appetite than Americans on average. And I think the U.S. has been very unpredictable, unsettled. And when we swing from Donald Trump one day to Joe Biden the next, I think it gives people a sense that maybe you can't count on the Americans because they could turn out to be a completely different personality just in the matter of an election. That's something that we need to work on the U.S. to provide a consistent, stable message that Canada is an important partner, and we're building the structures to keep them in the family, not alienate them or throw them out of NAFTA, which Donald Trump talked about. So I think if the U.S. is more consistent and more positive about Canada and including Canada in conversations, Canadians will be restored in their confidence that we're good neighbors. But we haven't always been in the last few years.
To what extent are Canadians watching what's happening this week with President Trump becoming the first U.S. president ever to be indicted?
Well, I think the one thing you can say about Donald Trump is he's never boring, and he does draw people's attention to a lot of important issues, and he helped us renegotiate our trade policy. He had a very tough position on China, tough position on Russia. There were certain aspects of his personality that I think were good, but then he was very unpredictable, temperamental, and I think that goes to the instability that had a lot of Canadians wondering, do we really know the Americans, or are they moving off in a different direction? So the important thing here, as we hear from Trump, is to show the rule of law works, and that if there's a crime, that it's dealt with and nobody's above the law, as they say. But also, if this is a political prosecution, as some of the Republicans say, we need to make sure that it's given proper due process. So for Canadians that might be worried about a second Trump administration, the first question is, does the system deal with even an outsized personality like Donald Trump in a way that is judicious and fair? Canadians believe in the rule of law, Americans do on a good day, and we just need to see this process carry through.